front.
Okay, we have Delene Lewis here, guys, the LUXE listing celebrity superstar and also top-ranking agent in the country. How's that for an intro? We're going to be talking this morning about the luxury property market. It's just gone gangbusters. What is going on, Delene?
It's supply and demand when the market tightens up, and every time the market tightens up, when they start talking the market down, the market tightens up because people at the top end say, you know what, I'm not going to sell, I'm going to hold on. And then supply dries up, and obviously buyers that need to buy, they're going to pay the freight or they get left behind because there's always someone that's going to pay the freight. And what we're seeing here is a lack of supply, a serious lack of supply. It's probably tighter than it's ever been. And buyers who want to buy for the long term, and these are long haul buyers, they're paying what needs to be paid. I mean, they're very, very strong prices, but they're paying what needs to be paid to get into this top end. Now, those owners that you're looking at, these properties that are selling, they don't need to sell. It's not like they're affected by interest rates. It's the price that's compelling them to sell. And I call it make me move money. It's kind of like, what are you going to pay me to crowbar me out of a house that I'm completely comfortable in? I do not need the money.
Yeah.
What's it worth to you to make me move? And that's really what we're talking about.
Okay. I love that, make me move money. But this feels different this time around because all of a sudden, and look, I'm an Eastern Suburbs girl. I'm born and bred an Eastern Suburbs girl. I'm very familiar with the market there, but it feels different this time around, Delene. It really does because, you know, all of a sudden we're hearing property prices like $40 million and there's been a number of $60+ million sales. These feel like bigger than normal prices.
Well, I mean, it's interesting you say that because, yes, it does. But remember when we were in COVID, 2021, where we were getting these huge prices and people were saying the same thing. It feels different. This is huge. These are big numbers. It doesn't make any sense. Everything is big. It's not big anymore. What they say, records are meant to be broken. That's exactly what happens, because I remember 30 years ago, we're getting $5 million for places and people go, wow, that's amazing. This is huge. Let's tap into the market. Yeah. And then you sell the place next door 2 years later for $8 million and then 15. And this is where the market goes. This is market growth. It might seem exponential. It might seem enormous, but is it? Is it? Because you think about the cost of building now. It's doubled, it's tripled. I'm going through the process at the moment to try and build my house, and it's extraordinary how expensive it is. And there's a lot of people that say, I don't want to build. I don't have the time to build. And what they're doing is not only paying for the value of the house, but paying for the value of their time. To say I can move straight.
And that's really important. But it's funny that you say that because obviously we're in real estate on the Northern Beaches, and this morning we did a segment on our morning minutes, and it was about people overpaying for these knockdown properties. You know, we've seen it where it's been going, you know, hundreds of thousands of dollars above reserve. That's, you know, that's enormous on the Northern Beaches. These are knockdowns, houses that are unlivable. So it's interesting that you're seeing things on the other end of the spectrum. Tell me, the international buyers, are you seeing the return of them?
They've never left. They've never left. They dwindled a little bit in terms of the level of intensity, but they never left. They've always been here. I think you talk about expats as an international buyer base, and they've always been here. They were really strong, obviously, during COVID. The level of intensity dropped off a little bit this year, but they've never left. I think if you talk about, you know, the Asian market, and there's been a little bit of, I think, a pause there because they couldn't get their money out of China. I mean, I've had I think you and I talked about this. When I was pregnant last year, I sold 3 high-end properties, 27, 23, 18, all to the one buyer. And it was a cash buy, you know, and I thought, great. You're talking about, I think it was a total of $80 million worth of sales we sold as one buyer. 12-month settlement, 5% deposit, 7.5% deposit in some cases, hasn't settled. Chinese, couldn't get his money out of China. That's a
Wow.
big change, about $10 million worth of deposits lost. And I've just had to resell those properties now. And it's interesting because they're talking about this big drop in the market. There was not an enormous loss in those properties. In fact, one I got exactly
Wow.
the same price I got 12 months ago. So we might see these prices as being extraordinarily high, but are they, in context of what's happening in the world, in terms of the building costs, in terms of the position that you're buying for the next 10 years, and you've got your money in your bank and you've got your money in real estate, where would you prefer to have your money? I know I'd prefer to have my money in real
Yeah,
estate,
I agree.
and it's
I
tax-free.
agree. Yeah, and look, it is absolutely quite incredible. But what I want to ask you a couple of more questions. So it's assumed that the high-end luxury market hasn't been as affected by these 12 interest rate rises. I mean, I work in a very different market to you.
Yeah.
Delene and I are friends, for those of you that don't know. Delene works obviously in the eastern suburbs market. I'm over on the northern beaches market. And sometimes these markets can be absolute polar opposites. It's
Yeah.
incredible. And I feel there's been many a time where we've been talking and we'll see stuff a little bit ahead of what's going on with your market.
So
But
much.
the 12 interest rate, yeah, it's incredible. But Delene, the 12 interest rate rises, now that sort of has kind of spurred buyers on, oddly enough, in our marketplace. What sort of effect has that given on your market with those 12 interest rate rises? Has it had an effect? And if so, what are you seeing?
It's been discussed by buyers, I think, as a negotiating tool, but I don't really think it's had an enormous effect yet. You talk about a lot of people that haven't come off their fixed rates yet. They're at 2.6, 2.7%,
Yeah,
jacking up to 6%. That's happening now. And you see a lot of people that are in negative equity territory with their properties, their investment properties. And the question is, do I sell them or do I make plans to hold? Those are the
yeah,
conversations people are having right now. And I think when you're seeing those 12 interest rate rises, and I remember, Lisa, when I was selling you and Mark's place, we were talking about the fact that you guys, as you just said, you see, this was it last year? Beginning of
mm,
last year, we were talking
yeah,
about how you see things happening before we do, because a lot of the homes that you are
correct.
selling, they're holiday homes, or people have less, extra spending money, so they don't go and buy the holiday houses, or investment properties, they offload them first rather than the principal place of residence where they have more equity.
Mm,
So you see that ahead of us, and you were seeing things that were happening, and we were 3 or 4 months behind you in terms of seeing that. So we
yeah,
haven't seen that as much now. But we will, I think, in the lower price properties, you're talking about up to sort of $2.5 million, up to $3 million for some investment properties. People want to offload because they're into negative equity territory, and then you're talking about the rents aren't really covering, even when they're putting the rents up, they're not
yeah,
actually covering the outgoings that these owners have to pay for their repayments and levies, etc. So you will see the investment properties, the lower price properties, probably exit the market first. The high end properties, like I said before, they have being held onto because they're lots of equity in them, and people will try and hold them for longer if they can.
yeah, I agree. And typically with these high-end luxury buyers, is there a typical um, type of industry that they're in? These buyers that are spending this 40, 50, 60 million, look, this is an extraordinary amount of money. It doesn't matter where you are in the world, whether you're in New York, you're in Sydney, that is an extraordinary amount of money to spend on a property. Are they typically in a certain industry? I mean, are they real estate agents,
No.
stockbrokers, doctors?
People negotiate your fee and they say, listen, can you, instead of 2%, can you take one, including GST? We're going to be the $40-50 million buyers of these properties. But I just want to do a little calculation for you.
Yeah.
$60 million, 7%. It's about $4.2 million in terms of repayments per annum. That's about $350,000
Wow.
a month.
Okay, hang on. Let's just say that again, because that's going to make people's heads spin. So a $60 million property,
Yeah.
the repayments per annum are 4.2 mil.
And 350 grand a month. So I don't know who's earning 350
Wow.
grand a month out there. Lisa, are you earning 350 grand a month?
No, are you?
No. There have
No.
been that I have actually, but unfortunately, sadly, it doesn't happen every month. So, I
No,
don't think
that's right.
I don't think I'd love to invite you over for dinner to my $60 million house, but that's never going to happen. There's
Well,
gold, there's gold,
that,
and then there's that.
exactly. And then I want to ask you, so okay, so can you answer that question? Who are they typically? Is there a typical, are they surgeons? Are they, because look, I sold a 21.5 million dollar property in Manly, and he was a surgeon. Are you seeing a typical industry?
Did you see the article in the paper the other day about the people that earn the most amount of money? There was not one real estate agent on there. There were surgeons that was at the highest, and that was $450,000 a year. So, just with the people that are buying these places, to answer your question, they're captains of industry. They have their own businesses. I think
Right.
you can't work for someone per se and
Yeah.
earn the kind of money that you need to be able to buy these kind of properties. Now, I'm just going to do I've got a stamp duty chart. All of you agents, you should always have. Do you have a stamp duty chart?
Yes.
Okay, so let's just work out the stamp duty on a $60 million property. We're in New South Wales. It's not a first home buyer, so that would be the stamp duty, people, on that is $4.14 million.
Wow. Literally, that is like throwing $4.1 million out the window. It's going straight into the hands of the government. You certainly don't see anything for it. That is a crazy, crazy amount of money. Now, let's talk about, what do you get for that kind of money? So obviously, we see some lovely photos. You're going inside these properties, Delene. What are you getting for $60 million? I've seen in Bellevue Hill, there's been a couple of these sales over the last few weeks. What are you getting for that money?
Getting land. You're getting convenience. You get land. The one that just sold in Kambala Road, I mean, that was a magnificently done property. I mean, discussions that it cost about $20 million to do the build. And you go, where do you spend $20 million? You can spend $1 million on joinery really, really easily. Like, the house was beautifully finished. And the people that are buying these houses, they're not idiots. They don't go and go, oh, I'm going to drop $60 million, or the one in Manala Road that just sold for 69. They're not silly buyers. You talk about their position buyers. They've got beautiful taste. Like, these are beautifully finished places. So if you try to replicate that, I mean, that house next to that house in Kambala Road, it was just written in the paper the other day, that's been listed for $40 million, still a big chunk of change. And by the way, if you're a foreign buyer, for that $60 million, the stamp duty was $4 million. If you were a foreign buyer, your stamp duty would be $8.9 million, just so you know.
I mean,
that's the difference. So,
that's crazy. Yeah, that's right.
chunk.
They're paying more in stamp duty. Okay, so you're getting something absolutely phenomenal. And I'm assuming, you've got the best marble stones, the most amazing appliances. Are you getting tennis courts and things like that? You were talking about land, but I saw one of those properties. It wasn't sitting on, correct me if I'm wrong, it was about 700 and something square meters.
But also, it's not always the size that counts. It is it's what you do with it, right? So that house they're talking about, it had maximum floor space and was beautifully wide. Every room, the floor plan worked. It was a beautiful floor plan. And there was another one, obviously, that sold. There was 1,400 square meters for 35 million, and knock down and rebuild. So there you go. Qantas female boss with the $1 million salary.
There you go. Yep. Go the girl. Go the girl.
No, I've got some good listings coming up. I should give her a call. But like we sold one in Parsley Road. That was $21 million on the beach, and it was a house that was done, 10 years ago. It wasn't brand new. It wasn't super modern. It wasn't super luxe. It was just a beautiful position. And there's a percentage of the market that want to buy a position like the one in Winola Road, you know, was 1,400 square meters, sold for $69 million, right on the water, not iconic views, facing east, so towards, you know,
Right.
Rose Bay, but it had its own jetty, it had a little private beach.
Well, that's it. You know, often they're often wanting these absolutely magical qualities, you know. So, and privacy is a big thing, no doubt. Views usually is a bit of a not negotiable, and then they're wanting that grandeur. So, but no, really super interesting. Tell me, is that the new benchmark now, Delene? Because we've seen a number of these sort of 40, 50, $60 million sales. Is this going to be the new benchmark? Is everyone in Bellevue Hill going to be looking for this kind of money for their property?
Bellevue Hill and beyond, everyone I'm speaking to is like, well, if they got $60 million for
That's
that
right.
square meters on a rate per square meter, surely mine would be worth 35. And you're like, no.
No.
But it's a complicated conversation because you don't want to be
Yeah.
the no girl, right? You want to be the yes guy, but you also have to tell the truth. Like you've got that there are always points in the market where you realize that that is a really extraordinary transaction. And the market is not defined by one or two extraordinary transactions. One thing is, you know, they say real estate agents lie, but data does not. And there is enough data when you're going into listing appointments. And if you're not prepared and you're trying to wing it, you're going to lose that every time because you're going to be questioned on that by people that are aware of the data. So bring in your
Yeah, that's
10
right.
comparable sales. You sit down with people and you say, bang, 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 bang. These are the sales. These are the rates per square meter. Including those two, that makes this rate per square meter. You know, we're in there somewhere in the mix, and you don't want to be the person that says no because someone else is going to say yes. But just be armed with the data so it makes a little bit of sense.
I agree. And look, you know, and not only that, but as real estate agents, we don't have crystal balls. You know, again, that
I
property that I
do.
sold in Manly, oh, well, I need one. Can I borrow it for a little while?
Yes.
Can I borrow it for a little while, please? But you know, but you know, look, the property again, you know, that iconic property that I sold in Manly, $21.5 million. When my vendor handed me that reserve on the day of auction for 19 million, I almost fell off my chair. But who
Why?
are we to say that's not, because that was an enormous reserve price for that property.
And
You know, it was the, I'm so sorry.
where did you have your interest on that one?
Around sort of the 15 to 16 and a half mil. Which is
Okay.
probably about where it's sat. You
Right.
know, but 9 registered bidders, a very iconic property, and it ended up achieving the highest price ever paid per square metre for a property in Manly. But, you know, 21.5, I mean, if my vendor had told me early on that she was looking for 21.5 million, I would have said to her, that is, where did you even get this figure from? That's an
Yeah.
extraordinary amount of money to pay for a 400 square metre property.
Would you have taken on the
400
listing?
square metre.
Came to you and said, I want $21.5 million for my house. Would you taken it on at the beginning?
Yes.
Okay. Why?
Yes, I would have, definitely. Because I say everything is possible, particularly with these very iconic properties. You know that people are going to overpay for them. And it's just a matter of how much is someone prepared to overpay. It also happened to be the most iconic house on the Northern Beaches. I've just listed another one, so stay tuned for that. But you know, everything is possible with these properties, Delene. It's the ones where the buyers have got the choice of 40 or 50 others where you're going, hang on a sec, that one sold for 850,000. Why do you think yours is worth 2 million? You know, because when the buyers can go out and choose another 40 that look and
I
feel
think
the same.
that's what I love about this job is that everything is possible because you never know who's around the corner. And with all those 40 houses, there can only be one buyer for each one of them. And so
Yeah.
you always have to keep in the game, even when you think something's impossible. It's not up to you to define the market. You're not the keeper of the market. You're a messenger
Yeah.
in the market. And it's how you deliver the message that makes you good or great and how you keep on delivering a message. And we've worked through really tough markets where people weren't coming through. You still have to keep on making those sales. And I think those are the things when you say, is this the new normal? Maybe it is. How do we know? You just got to roll with
Yeah.
it. You keep on pivoting because you are not the person that decides this. It's the buyers and the sellers because you are just the messenger between those people to try and keep the deals happening. And it's always really important, and I've learned this over 30 years, not to keep your head stuck in what you think should be. It's about being open to where the market is going and where the market is. Even if it's falling sometimes, you have to be open to that and keep on delivering the message and stay on top of the data. And I think that's where you did so
I agree.
like, it's not what you think. It's like you did your job, you followed the process, and guess what? You got an awesome result. That's what we're supposed to be doing.
That's exactly right. That is exactly right. But talking about trends, I mean, if you follow the trends of what's going on at the moment, I was interviewed the other day by Shaw Financial. These guys are one of the largest mortgage brokering companies in the country. And it was interesting because the bigger thing at the moment is getting your hands on money. So, you know, we don't see a huge amount of cash buyers. You guys talk about cash buyers in your marketplace, and these guys aren't affected by can they get their loans or can't they get their loans. They're literally paying cash for them. So it
They got
seems to be what is it?
they got their banker on speed dial. Like, hey,
That's it. Yeah, that's right. Bring in the briefcases. But, you know, it seems to be its own market all of its own. And there seems to be no rhyme or reason to it at the moment. It's just how much is someone prepared to pay for something that they just can't simply get their hands on because there's no stock around.
Yeah, you know what? I think there is a little bit of a rhyme and reason because there are trends in the marketplace, and you're starting to see them now, which is the supply and demand. That's certainly one reason.
Yeah, for sure.
Talking about an elevated rate per square meter because it's costing more to build, and so for finished properties, you're saying it's going to cost you 20 million to build, land value for that, you know, and then you start dissecting it. Is it 2, 3, 4, 5, $10 million over? How do we know? Again, we're not keepers of the market. We're just there to
I agree.
To present it to the owners and try and make sense of it. And sometimes there's no sure, but one big sale does not a market make. 2 big sales does not a market make. 10 big sales starts to find a market because that is consistent data. And there is the thing that we're so lucky. When I first got into real estate 30 years ago, we didn't even have internet. This is like, we didn't know, you know, there was rate per square meter and you get a whole list of comparable sales. Now it is so easy to get that data, and there's absolutely no reason to be unprepared when you're going to speak to your owners and trying to work out a valuation because the data points are there. They're there.
No,
and it starts to make more sense as you kind of delve into it. You're like, wow, that is high, but what did it have that made it so compelling for these people to pay that kind of price?
Yeah, that's exactly right. Are you going to see a couple of more questions? Are you going to see we're seeing more stock coming on in your area?
It's still light. It's still light, and it's probably going to continue that way. And this is what we've always said to buyers: is like, don't try and outrun the market, because you can only see it in hindsight what's happening. It's like if you see something that you like, you buy it. Don't wait for a sunny a day because you don't know around the corner. Just go with it. And some buyers, I remember when the interest rates were going up and we were at COVID, and people saying, "Oh, I'm going to wait, I'm going to buy that." And guess what? They missed the market, didn't they? You know, so it's really hard to outsmart the market. Even economists aren't doing that. So, you know, at the end of the day, you can just roll with what works for you. If you find a house you like, buy it. You know, try and
I agree. I'm always saying that. I'm always saying that. Now, just very quickly, Delene, because we're going to let you go. I know you're a busy girl and I've got to get to my open homes as well. Quickly, a working mum, how do you do it? What's the secret? Have you got there? Is there like a little bit of magic dust there? What's the secret? I know I get asked it all the time.
Can you see that? That's called juggling. It's a juggling act. Like I wake up these days at 5 o'clock in the morning so I can have my meditation, and so that I can give the baby her time before I leave to work. The other 2 big kids, and then I drop them off at school at 8 o'clock, and then I'm in the office and I kind of do my thing. So, and then back to school, pick up in the afternoon. There are no wasted minutes in my world.
I love that.
And, you know, but this is the thing, as a working mum, and I've got a working mum as my EA, and she's unbelievable because there's not wasted minutes. We get stuff done because we don't have an option to not get it done. And then after I put the kids down at 8:30 or 8 o'clock at night, and I'm back in my office at home for a couple of hours getting stuff done. I do a lot of pajama deals, I call them, where You know, the kids are asleep and I'm out to the vendor's house exchanging contracts at 9:30, 10 o'clock at night, because you do what needs to be done to get the job done. And my competitors constantly say, oh, Delene's not available. She's not going to be available if you give her these things. And I'm like, watch me. Lisa, you've seen when I sold your house what time I was there.
I've seen it. Listen, it was midnight. it was midnight on a Friday night when when that exchange got done. And that's it. You nailed it right there. There are no wasted minutes. There is never a moment where we're like, I think I'm just going to sit and relax for a moment. It's just it is constant. And you have 3 little kids. You run a business. You're an absolute gun of an agent, and that's why. That is why. You give a job to a busy person and you're going to get it done. So absolute powerhouse.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for giving us your time. I really appreciate it. And Delene Lewis, guys, if you need someone, a phenomenal agent, and honestly, I can confidently say this firsthand because we have worked with Delene. She has sold properties for us personally before, and she's a great friend and just a phenomenal, phenomenal woman. Thank you so much. Love you lots.